the most iconic performances of all time, you'd probably list off a bunch of names like Marlon Brando as Vito Corleone, James Gandolfini as Tony Soprano, Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones. But all of these performances were original. The audience had no expectations when they first saw it, nothing to compare it to. What's even more challenging is taking an iconic character that already has an iconic performance attached to it and daring to be great enough to redefine the audience's expectations. And at the age of just 27 at the time of filming, that's exactly what Heath Ledger decided to do with the Joker. When Christopher Nolan put out a casting call for The Dark Knight's villain, a lot of actors shied away from the opportunity, knowing that the character had already been defined by Jack Nicholson in cinema, Mark Hamill in animation, and Cesar Romero in television. Before seeing Batman Begins, Ledger had expressed disinterest in the genre, but after seeing the realistic world Nolan had built, Heath was actually the one to pursue him this time, feeling he had something to contribute.
So I knew it was open for a fresh interpretation, and I also instantly kind of had something up my sleeve.
At this point in his career, Ledger was a respected actor, but more of a pretty boy, a romantic figure. He shook things up by playing the emotionally repressed Ennis in Brokeback Mountain, which earned him his first ever Oscar nomination. But as impressive as that performance was, when word got out that Heath Ledger was going to be playing the Joker, it didn't quite add up. It felt like it could be a potential disaster in the making, but he and director Christopher Nolan seemed to share the same vision for the character.
We saw absolutely eye to eye on the bigger picture idea.
These ideas were focused on key influences, like Alex DeLarge from A Clockwork Orange, someone with a unique style who brings a sense of playfulness to violence, and the artwork of Francis Bacon, bringing a haunting grittiness to the notion of a face. Ledger was hands-on in every aspect of the character, choosing the right shoes, knives, and colour coordination for the outfit, even studying how ventriloquist dummies laugh, as he always found them particularly terrifying. Little details mattered a lot to him, like wanting to be the one to put on his own makeup, as realistically that's what the character would have to do, which made him a lot rougher with face paint under his fingernails. He locked himself away for a full month, totally isolated, to fully immerse himself in the role, keeping a diary in which he wrote out his lines of dialogue again and again, and kept these pictorial scraps that would later inspire his performance. So let's examine Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker up close, and see how these influences manifested on screen to create something we simply never saw coming. Let's start with the physicality of the character. The opening sequence introduces a series of bank robbers wearing clown masks, but despite all of them wearing the same outfit, Heath makes his character immediately identifiable with his body language. The others are more rigid, they talk and move very practically, whereas Heath is loose, almost animalistic. Like here, the camera was going to focus on him anyway, as obviously Nolan wants us to pay attention to him, but this superfluous little twirl keeps us engaged and intrigued. His limbs swing from their joints, which communicates that he's beyond relaxed. There's an unusual elegance to the movement, as if he's dancing or on drugs, or maybe both. His physical performance is just more interesting than the others, which subconsciously makes the audience want him to be our real villain, because that way we get to spend more time watching him. Ledger's performance has famously been compared to this Tom Waits interview, as they share the same loose, fluid physicality and even mannerisms.
Let me get comfortable here.
Okay.
Evening, Commissioner.
I got here last night. I was on a plane from Paris for about 22 hours.
Their code. It's a bad joke. Dropped at the first sign of trouble.
It's a sort of intangible, captivating energy, someone neither bothered nor bound by others' expectations of them, and every little gesture communicates that you're dealing with something different. It makes you wonder, is this person out of place or standing out? When you read Nolan's script, it's very bare bones and instructional. The character goes here and does this, which is how a lot of scripts are written. But the magic of what Ledger creates is clearly absent. And look, obviously the director Christopher Nolan had a huge influence over the character, But given Nolan wrote the script, you can see how the details of the character evolved by working together, as in the end, it's the idiosyncrasies that Ledger brought to the table that really make the performance so memorable. For instance, the Joker doesn't just have scars on his face, he's constantly tonguing at them, making his performance feel itchy and squirmy, like there's a nest of insects inside his mouth crawling around his gums. It's a very oral performance. He's always smacking his tongue and licking his lips, which makes him feel bloodthirsty, as if you're dealing with an animal. Check out this tiny moment here.
A guy like me. Look, listen.
This little clicking sound he inserts before he tuts is so unusual. Then notice how he drags his eyes across Gamble back to the rest of the room, as if his attention needs to be dragged away from his violent instincts. In that brief moment, he's eyeing his prey, but suppresses the urge to continue talking. In Ledger's diary, there was a picture of a hyena, and you can actually see that influence throughout. Hyenas release a laughing sound as they attack their prey, making them come across as if they're really relishing in the act of violence. And that same maniacal laughter explodes out of Ledger even when he's under attack. This is where the influence of Alex DeLarge from A Clockwork Orange comes in, someone that simply enjoys violence for violence sakes, even singing songs as they traumatize and harm others. There's a haunting disconnect between the Joker and his victims. While most actors maintain eye contact to create tension, here Ledger chooses to do the opposite. He's interspersing moments of eye contact, then looking around the room or inside the corners of his mind, communicating how little he values the life he's toying with. This inability to hold eye contact for extended periods showcases the chaos of the character and his rattling energy levels. There's nothing calm and steady about the Joker. It's all about the little decisions Heath Ledger makes along the way. His improvisation throughout The Dark Knight contributes a totally new texture to the piece. For instance, when Lieutenant Gordon is promoted to Commissioner, the room full of police officers applaud, and despite it not being in the script, Ledger chooses to join in, staring at him, entranced. There are layers to this decision. Firstly, it's fun for the audience and for the Joker to clap along sarcastically, but it's also an act of intimidation, as the more power Gordon has, the more danger he's in from the Joker's men. So the applause is playful, but the stare is predatory. When he interrupts Bruce Wayne's fundraiser for Harvey Dent, the script simply says, the Joker moves through the terrified guests, smiling, but Heath adds a chaotic energy to the scene, picking up entrees and eating them, and swigging from champagne glasses. His indulgence, his greed, his gluttony is really on show, taking center stage as everyone else around him watches in silence. But it's the little details that add the most to the character. The script says the Joker drops the gentleman, turns to Rachel. The Joker says, "Hello, beautiful," and continues the monologue. But Heath adds this playful parting of the hair, while also licking his lips, preparing to feast, and then stalks her around, trying to get her to look at him face to face. When he approaches Batman after the truck chase, the script simply says, the first thug pulls at the mask, an electrical shock from the Batsuit throws him back. The Joker laughs. That's it. But firstly, notice how Heath adds this little waltz hop as he approaches. Then when the thug, who, let's not forget, works for him, is electrocuted, he doesn't just laugh, he stomps on him, laughs maniacally, and spits on him. Without these little extra details, the character is much more flat, just an actor saying the lines and wearing the costume, but not embodying the character fully. Christopher Nolan trusted Ledger enough to let him take total creative control over the hostage videos, which was an amazing directorial decision, as it gives us real insight into how the actor interpreted the character, as he's now free, fully unleashed to make his own home video. And the results are far more harrowing than they read on the page. The script reads, the image cuts to a blindfolded man, wearing a makeshift Batman costume, face bruised and bloody, in some sort of bright fluorescent lit room. A voice says, tell them your name. The man responds weakly, Brian Douglas. Are you the real Batman? No. Why do you dress up like him? He's a symbol that we don't have to be afraid of scum like you. But you do, Brian. You really do. You think the Batmans helped Gotham? Brian nods uncertainly. Look at me. Brian looks down. Look at me. But let's see how Ledger changes things. Right off the bat, the room isn't just a bright fluorescent lit room. It's a meat freezer with hanging animal corpses behind, instantly making the whole scene more threatening and disturbing. Then he improvises this taunting, mocking his response, taking off the mask, and then having it dance across the screen.
No! Then why do you dress up like him?
These little creative choices matter so much to our impression of the character. This playfulness highlights how deranged he is, communicating that it's all just a game to him. Next, it's how he cycles through emotions while making constant physical contact. The script never indicates that the Joker is touching people in almost any scene, but Ledger makes the performance very handsy and somewhat sexual.
You really do. Huh? Yeah. Oh, shh.
He's grunting here like he's turned on and ready to kill, grips his neck, pulls his hair, strokes the back of his head, then gently strokes his cheek while shushing him softly, then slaps him on each cheek. It makes the entire scene unpredictable and unhinged. Then it closes with this dark abusive turn as he orders him to look at him.
Look at me!
In just one scene, filmed by the character rather than just starring him, we learn so much more. We get to witness his unpredictable, emotionally abusive psychosis, his mannerisms, his maniacal laughter. It's all right here, and aside from the key dialogue itself, it's all improvised and directed by Ledger. It's such an engrossing and pure performance, because the character isn't simply defined by the beliefs that motivate his actions, but how he physically embodies that philosophy. He truly is chaos in how he thinks, how he moves, and how he speaks. An unstoppable force of nature, warping the world into his image. And by playing this famous comic book character so vividly, with every idiosyncrasy persistently blossoming on screen, Heath Ledger transformed the Joker, not just into a plot point, a costume, or a laugh, but a state of mind. A feeling that lingers within each audience member for long after viewing.